Theater Talk is made possible in part by the CUNY TV Foundation. This is Theater Talk. I'm Susan Haskins. Our guest is a pivotal force in American film. His movies are so trashy and disgusting that he became an instant star on, well, not an instant star, a hard-earned star in Hollywood. Now his stuff is being adapted into a family Broadway musical, a big John Travolta empowerment film, and now an even more spectacular Broadway show. He is truly shameless, which gives him a lot in common with my co-host, Michael Riedel of the New York Post.
Good job. There's nothing more to say except to welcome John Waters, the great filmmaker, and now a man who is really colonizing Broadway and theater around the globe with umpteen productions of Hairspray and now Crybaby about to open. Welcome to Theater Talk.
Thank you.
You better watch out, because if you're not careful, you'll have more productions around the world than Andrew Lloyd Webber.
Well, I keep pushing Pink Flamingos as an opera.
Oh,
and
interesting.
Female Trouble would work. I think that one. And Serial Mom would be a good weekly TV series where she killed her, you know, the enemy of her children every week for political correctness.
right. But Pink Flamingos is an opera. That's interesting. Is that a
lady,
series?
well, you know, she sings and does something else at the end. You never know what can happen. And obviously, I never thought these two things were going to turn. I'm walking down Broadway the other night, and I look up and I see a giant billboard for Hairspray. I see the marquee for Crybaby, and I thought, this is kind of amazing. I felt like William Inge, only not drunk.
Well, the question I had for you is, I mean, I saw the wonderful documentary movie about you, Divine Trash, I think it's called. And, you know, as a kid, you had the 8mm camera, and you were always a filmmaker. And now you're a big Broadway personality. Did you ever have any interest in the theater, ever working in the theater or being on Broadway?
I had a stage when I was 8 years old that my parents built me in our house, that I gave one-man shows to my bewildered relatives.
You were a puppeteer, right?
I was a puppeteer. I had a career as a puppeteer when I was 12 years old. So I was always in show business, and I knew I was going to be.
Is that true that you were in the Peanut Gallery at the Howdy Doody?
Yeah, that's really true, that my parents, through my uncle who lived in New York, got me on the Howdy Doody show when I was about 6 years old, and I remember walking in there and looking at it all and thinking, it's all a lie. There's 5 Howdy Doody puppets, Buffalo Bob's mean to me, but I wasn't disillusioned. I thought, this is what I want to do. I'm in on it now, too. I get it's not like Godard said 24 frames of truth a second. It's 24 frames of a lie a second. Because that's what it is, a fully practiced lie.
Yeah. Interesting. So you were doing puppet shows, entertaining neighborhood kids.
I had horror houses.
Yeah, I know. I heard that too. You terrified the children in the neighborhood.
I did, and then one time I worked at a camp, and all summer I said, I'm going to read this novel I wrote called Reunion, and it was this hideous gore thing, and they all had nightmares. The camp called my parents to complain. I always had trouble with censors.
And where did this sort of, I don't know, desire to torture people come from? Because if you look at the movie and the interviews I've seen with your parents, you couldn't find two more nice, pleasant, conservative, straight-laced people.
Are still scared of me. Although I have to admit, on Hairspray was the only time ever they went to my Broadway opening. And I remember Harvey Firestein's mom came over to my mom that night. They had never met. And she said, didn't we raise terrific sons? My mother almost, because it's a great thing to say, but there's a lot of revisionist, thinking there.
Your mom's, I saw the same interview, your mom's not a gushy, warm person, though.
Well, she's reserved. My parents are very, they believe in the tyranny of good taste. Yeah, where else could I learn the rules to break them?
Yes, it did seem that you've been given a strong force to rebel against. There.
Not so really, because even though they were horrified by everything I did, my father paid for Pink Flamingos, and he's never seen it to this day, but it would be so mean to make him watch it. But when they came to Hairspray, that was the only time ever afterwards they said, we liked it, and I didn't see their nose grow, because every one of my movies, we liked it. No, you couldn't have liked it.
Well, Hairspray the movie, because Hairspray the
Hairspray the movie and the Broadway show, they were really
well, I mean, they've been waiting all these years for you to sort of like be mainstream, and then you come with one of the biggest hit musicals of all time. I think I remember your father saying somewhere he gave you, what, $2,000 to do Pink Flamingo?
$10,000.
$10,000.
I paid him back, though.
Yeah, he said, but he said it turned out not to be such a bad investment, the $10,000.
Yeah.
But he never went to see it.
No. And well, Divine and I both told our parents it was rated NP, no parents. That they were not allowed to come to see that one.
What were Divine's parents like?
Well, they ran a nursery school, and he was the only child, so he wasn't the best ad. But he had to do his mother's hair every night, so he had hairdo abuse. But Divine never left his house till he was 16. Whoa. And then he went out with a vengeance. But Divine was very different than... He wasn't like the Divine in my movies. He was a gentleman. He didn't walk around in drag. He didn't want to be a woman. He played a man in something.
Shut up! Or we're going off the air.
It's quite elegant. I mean, he dressed very elegantly.
Well, he did at the end. In the hippie years, he kind of wore a one-man's garbage man's uniform, like a one-piece suit that was kind of like a garbage man's outfit. But he had a look.
But on camera, Divine was the most monstrous
in the beginning.
Female specter.
We ought to just pick them up and shoot them. Yes. All this cavalcade of perversion.
But at the end, in Hairspray, he played a loving mother.
See that?
He went against tape, and it worked. That's when he got...
All right.
Yeah.
That's your interpretation.
Tracy, I have told you about that hair. All ratted up like a teenage Jezebel.
Oh, Mother, you're so 50s.
Tracy's flamboyant flip is all the rage, Miss Edna. Jackie Kennedy, our first lady, even rats her hair.
But Tracy ain't no first lady. Are you, Tracy? No, sirree. She's a hair hopper. That's what she is. Now, I've got nothing but hampers of ironing to do, and my diet pill is wearing off.
He was a loving mother in Hairspray, sure.
Yeah, no, he was terrific in Hairspray.
Yeah.
Well, let's then go to the other films that I did feel that...
In Pink Flamingos, he was Godzilla and Jayne Mansfield put together.
He's Godzilla and Jayne, and I always found in your films that you were making a very interesting statement on both women and motherhood, and I did wonder what was up with that.
Well, I don't know about motherhood. I think Divine always played characters that were politically correct in a way. She minded her own business. She was better than anyone else.
But monstrous.
But monstrous.
Grotesque.
But she had a look. I mean, it was grotesque, but certainly I always like people that...
Michael will tell you I
fat
love
people
grotesque.
maybe that then dress like Jayne Mansfield is, I think, good. You don't have to dress frumpy just because you're overweight. So Divine would wear like cut-out miniskirts when he weighed 350 pounds. It's not the usual look, but I think he made fat people feel good.
But what brought you to this?
A fat person to me stood best for every kind of outsider because my audience always was minorities that couldn't even fit in their own minority.
So
and
then
they
fat
still
people
are.
was a
That's
symbol for
my,
that.
you know.
And you as thin as a reed always.
Yeah, I was the Jack Sprat. Fat girls still like me. They wave to me on the street and everything because I've had a good career with fat women.
And you met Divine as a kid
We met not as a kid. We met in high school, like in junior. And we were both juniors in high school, and his parents moved up the street from my house.
And he was, I think I remember hearing somewhere that he was a kid who was really kind of teased.
He was mercilessly
teased.
I wasn't hassled in school because they thought I was nuts.
Yeah, right.
And I was on LSD, so
also,
they didn't even know what that was.
And you see the old pictures of you. I mean, you looked like this sort of cool hippie with the long hair. You're handsome.
Well, I had a bad hair life always, but I had it looked like bacon kind of. But I did have long hair. Yeah.
But yeah, Divine was sort of really picked on, and
he was.
And did you kind of, I don't know, sort of his friends rally around him and try to
but we didn't
him?
go to school. I never hung around with anybody I went to school with, and neither did he. We got as far away as we could from school quickly in our neighborhood, and went downtown to be beatniks and hippies and hang around. And Divine would go to scary drag balls with like monsters, and there would be knife fights, and the drag queens hated him because he made fun of drag queens.
So when did you decide to put him in a movie?
Well, the first one we made was in 1966, so that was 2 years after we were out of high school.
And you just thought...
Well, I thought he would be perfect because I had seen him once in drag. Well, he did go to his... You know, he wasn't a straight drag queen. I mean, he never, except for a few times, he went to his high school prom dressed as Elizabeth Taylor and picked the girl up. What did her parents think? And we did later, we did a talk show, and Divine said, and he said, you know, the girl, Diane, is in the audience. The girl, I can see her right over there. We hadn't seen her for years. And she came up, she was friends. She had great memories from it. Had pictures, prom pictures
I have
that
to say,
she had.
I was fascinated watching that movie where they're talking about Divine, the inspiration for Divine's makeup.
Yeah.
He said Clarabelle the Clown, I believe.
I think it was Clarabelle. Well, Van Smith did all my, bless his soul, he died last year, but he did all the makeup and costumes for all my movies, really. And he thought up that look, certainly. But I told Van, well, do something weird with the hairline so we have more room for eye makeup. So he The look was that the human hair blocked enough room for eye makeup. So he shaved the front back so the eyebrows could go higher.
Right, right.
And in one of the movies, in Female Trouble, Divine's eyebrows go all the way around and meet in the back.
What struck me when they said that, and I was looking at Divine's makeup, I thought, Divine may have been inspired by Clarabelle the Clown, but I think John Wayne Gacy was inspired by Divine.
He came a little later.
He did, but remember he had that clown makeup too, and he looked
yeah.
like the sort of Divine things he would put on there, really sort of terrifying.
Yeah. And you own one of John Wayne Gacy's
somebody gave me
pictures.
this. It's on every website. I don't collect serial killer art.
All right.
One person did once. It was a good present for Christmas, gave me a John Wayne Gacy painting, which I still have, way in the corner of a guest room, so if you stay in there, you don't stay too long. You're and it's a bad painting. And I didn't like John Wayne Gacy. He was the worst closet queen. He had to kill everybody he slept with so he didn't find out. Who wants to sleep with a killer clown? That's a bad night.
What's the painting look like?
It's a rip-off of Disney's The Witch and Snow White. All he did was trace things, you know. Yeah. But then there's a weird little thing where a window's blocked up. That's a detail that made me nervous.
You're friends with one of the Manson women,
yeah,
are you?
I'm going to talk about that to be serious, though. I believe in... I taught in prison for a long time.
Yeah,
and I believe in rehabilitation. And I do believe, if you've seen Leslie Van Houten ever on television and everything, that she was 19. She met a madman. She's been in prison for 38 years. She was totally brainwashed by him. She takes full responsibility about it, that I do believe in parole for her, yes.
Now,
we digress.
Speaking of prison, Crybaby is set. Part of it is set in the prison. What was the inspiration or the impetus for you to make that movie and tell the story? Yeah, Crybaby.
Well, I guess it was after Hairspray, and I thought, well, I only remember one thing before that in my nostalgia, and I really couldn't be a juvenile delinquent because I was too young to be one, but I wanted to be one. I was a closet juvenile delinquent, and one lived across the street from me that really I based Crybaby on. I never met him or talked to him, but I used to watch him. I was his fan. And of course my parents didn't like the family. Everybody complained about him. So, and I love rockabilly music. And I always like things right before something happens, right before Elvis, which is what Crybaby is. And Hairspray was right before the Beatles, so right before everything changes. So, and I like the idea of juvenile delinquents. I like juvenile delinquent movies. It was a genre I could satire. And so that's how it happened. And it was my only real musical I actually made. I mean, there was original music in Crybaby.
Right.
Not the same as in the Broadway show, obviously.
Right. And when you are now in the midst of, you're in previews for Crybaby now. And I understand that you're making a lot of changes, which is unusual because on Broadway now, shows go into previews at this point, you know, and they're generally frozen. But I hear that
I don't think that isn't true. Hairspray wasn't. I mean,
even on Broadway, Hairspray, you're making a lot of big changes.
We made changes, and I remember certainly we were in La Jolla before this, and we made changes there too. And I believe I'm spoiled though. I've only done this twice, and we made changes on both. It's like editing a movie. It's tinkering right up to the very end before it's frozen, which is what, 3 days before you open.
Now, are you more involved though in Crybaby than you were in Hairspray?
I was involved in Hairspray too. I mean, certainly from the very beginning, I helped decide who was hired to do the music, who's casting. You know, I mean.
Were you around it as much as you've been around Crybaby?
Yeah, I have been. Yeah, I went to Hairspray the whole time we were in Seattle, so I've been around both of them a lot.
How come you never wanted to write the book yourself?
Because I did it, and to me, it's the ultimate thing is to be reinvented. Someone has to reinvent it for it to work. Same way when they made the movie of Hairspray, they have to reinvent that. If it's the same as when it stops, it doesn't work if it's the same, as we know from other movies that have happened like that. So I want someone else to reinvent me. I did it once. It's not my obsession again. I wrote that.
Mama, welcome to the 60s.
Hey, Tracy, hey, baby, look at me. I'm the cutest chickie that you ever did see. Hey, Tracy, hey, baby, look at us. When it was everything that's happened, so fabulous.
I don't know the past now. Say hello to this red cup rap. Yes, I know that the world's spinning fast now. So don't be ready to step aside. Come on, working in the 60s.
Here's the interesting line, though, that you've got to sort of flirt around with a Broadway musical. That sometimes, I was thinking of the LA Times review of Crybaby, where they say they've taken the edge away from John Waters.
You know,
how do you respond to that
I never
kind of
answer
criticism?
reviews because it's crazy. It's a sign of an amateur. But however, Crybaby was hardly that edgy. It was a PG-13 movie. I think the play is edgier than the movie.
Really?
If you see it, we have a song called "Girl, Can I Kiss You with Tongue?" You know, I mean, there's ruder stuff in it than there was in the movie. I think it's sexy. I think this is really sexy. The play, the choreography is really sexy. So the edge of Crybaby, I'm not quite sure what that edge was. There's one scene, yes, where she cries in a jar and drinks her tears, and I didn't put that. They didn't put that in here, but we have a couple things that's rude.
When I was watching the movie of Hairspray.
Of Hairspray. That's even less. That was PG.
Well, because
that was your mainstream breakout hit,
because
right?
when I was
accidental
reflecting back on Divine and John Travolta and thinking, boy, whatever I saw as the point of Hairspray when I first saw it is certainly...
It has to be reinvented. It can't be the same. Yeah. If it was the same, why would someone go see it again?
I just was thinking of the fact that now you were celebrating the outsider, and now everybody's an outsider.
Yeah, but that's why I'm an insider now, and that's much more... That's better because no one says they're an insider anymore. It's a dirty word. So I'm finally saying to everybody, oh, please, those outsiders, I'm an insider. Because everybody thinks they're an outsider. It's the most overused word besides rigorous.
That's what I meant.
That's the second overused word. But,
or dysfunctional.
Yeah.
And I guess it's nice to be now an insider. I mean,
yes,
you fly first class and stay in nice hotels.
I've flown first class for years. But I didn't fly first class until I was 40, and in the beginning, I drove around the country with the prints of my films in the trunk of the car and stood on corners. I hitchhiked with my movies. I stole things to make my movies. So I paid my dues. But I don't have nostalgia for that. I don't want to go back and do that. But I certainly, I have done it all different ways. I've been on every circuit.
What was the first movie you did that you actually saw money coming in? You got a check for something you did?
They all did, because in the beginning I distributed them myself, and I went around the country, and I'd go to a town, usually where they had just burned the Bank of America down. That was a good sign, right? During the riots in the 60s. So, and then I would go whatever was the weirdest theater and said, can I rent this theater at midnight for 2 nights? And they were four-walling before people really did it. And for $40 or something in a hippie theater. And then I'd stand on the corner. My mother would send me the flyers. We'd had one with a blank on the bottom, and I'd stamp in the name of the theater, stand on the corner, give out flyers, take the money, and move on to the next town. I really learned from doing that, let me tell you. I really learned. And then I got distribution with New Line, and then each time, I mean, Pink Flamingos was the first one where actually I started to see money. But even that took a couple of years to pay back, you know. Right. And I had distribution for Multiple Maniacs before that, from reading Variety. I always read Variety and found out how do I could make them, but I got to get the money back to make the next one. Right. So I never got rich, certainly. I certainly, nothing happened overnight. It went very slowly, and it's still like that, really. I mean, it's, who knows?
But have you... I mean, you know, I should be interviewing your accountant, but I was just wondering.
No, I'm a thousandaire, yeah.
Have you made now more money, though, from the success of the Broadway show Hairspray than any movie you ever did?
I have made more money from the Broadway musical than anything I've ever done in my life. And I thank all the producers for doing it. And I always take Margot Lyon to lunch myself now. And it's really true. I have made more from that because in theater bookkeeping, there's not all these things they can do, really. Yeah. There's one theater, and there's so many seats. And they seem to be very fair about it. They don't deduct interest for every lunch they had 30 years ago.
Right. Or they don't pretend they didn't make a profit.
Yeah, it's been lovely.
Now, was it Margot Lyon, the producer of Hairspray, who approached you about... And did you know her at all?
No.
So you got a call out of the blue from
She's from Baltimore, but I didn't know her.
That's
she
right,
left
she
Baltimore a long time ago. Believe me, she didn't know the Baltimore this was about.
No. She was, she was a Roland Park area girl, I suspect. Had anyone approached you before about turning your movies into
Scott
musicals?
Rudin.
Really?
And it was eventually, and it never happened, the option, and it was also turned into a pilot for a TV show that didn't ever happen. So it had happened before. But Margot, when I went, they already had 5 songs. Yeah. And Scott and Mark had been hired, and as soon as I heard the songs,
Scott Whitman, Mark Shaman. And did you know them at all, those guys?
I might have met them during the Pyramid days and those kind of clubs and stuff. Yeah. But I knew that they totally understood it. And as soon as I met them, and as soon as I heard the music.
Because they had the right tone. In the songs, it struck the tone for what you wanted. Now the Crybaby team is interesting because you've got the composers from Fountains of Wayne, which is a hip...
Adams, who I love the group, and a DJ who was the main writer for the Daily Show. So we had 2 people. I don't think they knew each other. I'm not sure. But I would say Adam Epstein, Milan, and I listened to not thousands, but certainly hundreds of people's submissions for music. And we picked those 2. But then we also have, Tom and we have the book writers from Hairspray.
You've Tom Meehan and Mark O'Donnell.
Yep.
Yeah.
We have Rob Ashton, completely new choreographer. So we have some new and some not.
But are you the... I mean, I guess what I call you, are you the uber censor in the sense that if Tom and Mark write a joke or a scene that you don't feel is in keeping with the tone, do you have the veto power to say,
it's not like veto power. It's not like that. I'm a studio executive. We have meetings, and there's 8 of us, and we all give our notes. And they listen to my notes, but if they all hate my note, I wouldn't say you have to do it. I mostly give them notes of how much I like what they're doing. But yeah, if there's a joke, I'm going to say, well, they wouldn't say that in Baltimore. More of a tone thing, or a thing that they wouldn't say that. They'd say this. They wouldn't say highway. They'd say beltway, or that kind of thing. Or certainly casting, very much. I was there for many of the sessions.
Have you, being around these musicals now, watching them put together, do you have any desire to write one of your own, an original from scratch John Waters musical with book lyrics by John
Probably
Waters?
not, but I'm amazed at how different it is. And I've said it before, but from a movie is 1,000 different shots that you put together, cuts, right? A Broadway musical is one medium shot for 2 hours that you endlessly tinker with the timing. And I've seen it change the timing 2 seconds where no one laughs to everyone laughs. I mean, it's kind of amazing. And it is one master shot. That's it.
Yeah.
And that's why I think that my films do work as theater, because you can see them from the last row. They're bigger than life. Their personalities are...
But you say probably not writing a musical, even though now you're around it, you're living on Broadway?
No, probably not. I think I'm better to be based on my stuff to do a musical. I mean, Crybaby was my musical. I have written a musical before. Hairspray was really a dance movie, and I'm working on a children's Christmas movie now. So, I mean, that could be one.
You're going back to your roots of putting on those puppet shows.
It's an insane children's movie called Fruitcake.
God.
They're laughing in the control room.
It's a remarkable thing, though. I remember seeing Pink Flamingos when I was in college, and you saw it at night, and it was, wow, this is an underground movie, I think we call them. And now to have become, so mainstream as you are, if you will.
Well, but think about it. Pink Flamingos is playing uncut on cable television now. I'm shocked by that. How could that be?
Is it possible now?
I don't know.
It is uncut.
Then is it possible for a young John Waters to come up now and do the kind of movies that you did that really shocked people? Or are we unshockable?
But here's the difference. It isn't about shock. It's about wit and being funny, and you can surprise people. You can shock people, but they have to laugh. It's easy to shock people. I mean, I don't like snuff movies. I don't like reality television. I don't look at the news if they show somebody killing some hostage. I don't want to look at that. That shocks me, but I don't see it. To me, the trick is making somebody see something in a different way and making them laugh, even if they're horrified. That's I'm for. God, yeah, kids can do that. Sure, they can do it. Yeah.
Really? I guess they're doing it on YouTube all the time, or doing their own.
That is where they do it, and the internet is certainly the new underground, and so is the Wild Wild West. It's not even. I don't even think you can sue anybody on there yet for libel, can you?
No, you can't. And you can. I would imagine. I suppose if you YouTube you would get every clip from all of your movies.
Well,
and
no,
your
they had the whole movie on Female Trouble on the other day. I stopped that.
Oh, you did stop that.
And I stop on eBay pirate stuff every day. I police.
Really?
Yeah, because they got to protect your copyright of what you own.
So what are they selling on eBay?
Old Mondo Trash and Multiple Meanings illegally on DVD that are illegal ones because they're out of print right now.
Huh.
Oh, interesting. So you go check it every day, do you call them up yourself and say this?
You fill out the form.
Oh.
There's a form.
You have an empire to police now.
I do. I think up something weird in the morning and sell it in the afternoon. That's my job.
What's the what musical or what show would you like to see turned into a Broadway show next?
I think Mark and Scott always said that they wanted to do Female Trouble.
Now everybody freeze! Who wants to be famous? Who wants to die for art? I do!
And Carly, actually, she was in Hairspray. She was Tracy.
Right.
She now plays Pepper in
Carly. What's her name? Carly
Gibson. She replaced in Hairspray.
But the first night of Crybaby, she was in it, and the scenery fell and hit her on the head, and she just had a concussion. She just came back last night. So opening night, the first preview. So, and I said, well, in my last movie, A Dirty Shame, when you got a concussion, you turned into a sex addict. She said, no, that hasn't happened. So I called her up and tried to be encouraging to come back. Just watch the stagehands.
That'll do it. All right, we got to wrap it up. John Waters, we wish you the best of luck with Crybaby at the Marriott Marquis
Yeah,
Theater,
and afterwards
correct?
there can be a ride because the Lion King lets out the exact same time across the street, and I think we should have rumbles every night. The Crybaby audience fights the Lion King audience.
That sounds good. All right. We'll see you at the Tony Awards.
Okay. Oh,
So 4:30.
I'm going, but that doesn't mean because I'm expecting any.
Well, you never know.
Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Our thanks to the Friends of Theater Talk for their significant contribution to this production. Theater Talk is made possible in part by the Frederick Lowe Foundation, the Eleanor Naylor Dana Charitable Trust, the Alan S. Gordon Foundation, the Corey and Bob Donnelly Charitable Fund, Carrie J. Fries, the Dorothy Strelson Foundation, the New York City Department of Cultural Affairs, and the New York State Council on the Arts, a state agency. Playbill Online is the official website of Theater Talk and the home of the Playbill Club, providing information and opportunities for theater lovers. We welcome your questions or comments for Theater Talk. Thank you and good night.